Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Friday evening, the 22nd of March 2018. And tonight's topic, breaking news, Mueller report heading to Congress this weekend. Before we get into that, we're going to talk about gold and silver and cryptocurrencies and Trump new appointment to the Federal Reserve, Trump's dealings with China. We've got some Brexit news, and we've got two moronic stories. So welcome, Smaulgld, mug stackers, and game changers. We are now going to take a look at the gold and silver prices, and the markets were down today. It was not a very good day for the markets. Not good at all. Full stop, as Theresa May would say. Full stop. The stock market, the Dow Jones, took a beating, down nearly 2 percentage points to 25,502, but that was down 460 points. NASDAQ was down about almost 200 points, 196 points, down to 7642. That was a 2.5% dive. And the S&P 500 dropped 54 points, down 1.9% to 2,800. Still elevated stock levels, but not a good day at all. The dollar index went to 96.52. That was up a bit. And only gold managed to pull out a gain amongst the precious metals. Palladium took a beating. Palladium went down 44 points, $44, down to $15.39, but still well ahead of the price of gold. And platinum went down $15 to $845. Now, our gold price, gold actually managed to pull out a gain. $4, not a big gain, but it did go up. And that was good for a 0.31% increase. Still holding above $1,300. $1,313.04. And that, well, 4 cents there. I have it at $1,313.40 right now. We'll split the difference. The point is that the market is now closed and will not open until Sunday evening. So gold stands and closes the week over $1,300 at 1313.40. Silver wasn't as lucky, although it was pretty much unscathed, what you would have thought with the decline in the stock market. But the thing is, the dollar index rose, so the silver price did not make a positive. It was up earlier in the day, but didn't quite manage to finish in the green. Finished at 1541, and that's where it is right now. And we go over to the gold-silver ratio. Unsustainable gold-silver ratio should be 16 to 1, 15 to 1. Comes out of the ground at 9 to 1. It is so useful in our lives. It should be 1 to 1. Well, okay. Right now, reality says it is 85.23 to 1. And it doesn't know what it's talking about. Okay, well, there you go. 85.23 to 1. There is your gold-silver ratio in reality. Over on the crypto side, there's some crypto stories, but first let's take a look at the crypto prices. If you like, I don't follow that many of them. I can start following more of them if there's demand for that. I follow the big four, big five. I actually don't even follow EOS. I could, but I don't. And I can start following Stellar, and I can start following Cardano. Not to pump them, because I'm not interested in pumping anything. It's just if you're interested in what's going on with those coins, I could discuss it. And if you have a particular coin that you want to discuss, I can take a look at it. But again, remember, I do not promote anything. Some people think I say something positive about because there's a news story about it that I'm pumping it, or if I say something negative, I'm bashing it. Nope. Just pointing out the facts as I see them. All right, now, Bitcoin at $39.84. It's pretty much flat the last 24 hours. Ethereum at $135, $136, up 0.73%. Litecoin at $59.19, up 1.18%, and Bcash at $156. That's up about 2.5%. Not too much news today on Bitcoin. There's one pretty big piece of news, though. First, we're going to talk about Bakkt. We talk about Bakkt a lot, and Bakkt is that company that has been set up consortium between Microsoft, Starbucks, Boston Consulting, and ICE, who is the parent of the New York Stock Exchange. And they have grand ambitions to put together a trading platform to physically settle Bitcoin futures, to store Bitcoin, and to help people, to actually help adoption of Bitcoin as a spending currency. And that's why Starbucks is involved. And they recently raised some more capital after the date that they were supposed to have launched. And then they bought a company. They raised, I don't know, $180 million. And the word is leaked that when the people that bought in at that price, the valuation of the company was $740 million. So they've yet to do anything. The company has a valuation, but it has no product, no revenue. But there it is. We'll see when that comes out. I would imagine at some point, the only reason I say this is that the New York Stock Exchange, ICE, is a very influential entity. So is Microsoft, so is Starbucks. If they want to do this, then I'm sure they can work out a way with the regulators. The regulators are not interested in saying no. They're interested in being satisfied so they can say they protected investor interest. What they don't want to be accused of is preventing innovation from happening, preventing capital raising from happening. These are things that the SEC likes to promote. They just want to make sure that the disclosures are in place and that they're not going to have their reputation tarnished because they didn't properly vet these projects. But here's the big news today. You could take this 17 different ways, but I'll give you my spin on it. A couple of stories, all from the same story though. 95% of reported Bitcoin trading is fake, says Bitwise. And they say, oh, that's disaster. 95% of trading is a Bitcoin. I mean, it's all a fake, it's fraud. Well, not necessarily. The company that did the investigation and the research that found that nearly 95% of all reported trading Bitcoin is artificially created on unregulated exchange. Now, who was the company? The company was Bitwise. Did this research and actually used it as part and parcel of they're also applying, like Van Eck is, along with the CBOE group, for a Bitcoin ETF. What they wanted to show was they're fully aware that there are a lot of fraudulent exchanges out there. However, there are 10 exchanges which they named that actually have regular, what they consider verifiable trades happening on the spot market. And that's where the price discovery will take place, and that's where they have started to put market surveillance agreements in place. So they're acknowledging that there's fake trading going on, but they're also saying that there's now legitimate trading going on, and it's fairly substantial. It's not, I mean, it's ridiculous. You see some of the numbers on CoinMarketCap, and the amounts that are traded every day, they're pretty much wash sales. They're not trades. It's greater than the value, outstanding value of the coins that are listed every day. That just really isn't possible, that much volume is taking place. However, they did point out that exchanges like Coinbase, Binance, Gemini, Poloniex, Kraken, I'm going off memory with the ones they mentioned, have legitimate spot trading. So I would imagine that the SEC will take that under consideration, and we'll see if Bitwise beats Van Eck to the punch in getting the first Bitcoin ETF out the door in the United States. Now, earlier today, we didn't break the news, but I broke the news after it was broken, that Donald Trump had appointed has put forth a nominee for the Federal Reserve position, not to replace Jerome Powell, but just to be on the board. And he is a pro-gold candidate. You want to go check that out either at Smaulgld.com or the YouTuber BitChute. Talk about his background. He's pro-gold, but he's not really a gold standard guy. He is more of a commodity basket guy, although he is a free markets person. He's against a lot of the flagrant printing of money to boost the economy. So anyway, check it out. I've done a little bit of research on the guy. His name is Stephen Moore. And Donald Trump has appointed him to the Fed. Trump and China. Trump keeps saying every day, we're almost there, we're getting close, we're getting close. But this was an interesting comment here from a Chinese guy who I think he's in China. So any news outlet that's in China is pretty much official word. Wall Street Journal said President Trump said his administration was discussing leaving tariffs in place on Chinese goods for a substantial period of time. I don't know how to pronounce it. Chinese public won't accept its government reaching such deal, says Hu Yixing. The U.S. keeps the tariffs on Chinese goods, but China cancels all. He's saying that's not going to work. The United States can impose additional tariffs at any time, but China can't hit back? If that's the deal the U.S. wants, investors should sell their stocks soon. So this guy is basically saying that's not going to be a deal. I don't think that's really going to be. That's not a deal. That is a negotiating position right now. So I think, I've had a little dealing with this. Chinese don't view contract law negotiations the same way Westerners do. They view negotiation and contracts as part of an ongoing living relationship. Not as, well, it says this in this clause of the contract, so you must do this. They say, well, we have a relationship. We don't want to do that. We're not going to do that, but let's talk about what we are going to do, because now we're like partners. And then Westerners like, what are you talking about? Section 3.237 says you have to do this, or you have to pay a fine. And they say, well, yeah, but we're partners here, so what do you want to do about it? Anyway, so they do look at things a lot differently, and if you're going to negotiate with Chinese nationals, you have to understand that they have a different view of contract than Westerners have. Even within Europe, there's different views on contracts within the United States. It's a lot of people, I think the Anglo-Saxon mentality is that the contract is your bond, but it's not necessarily the case in the rest of the world. In fact, I think, just an example, when Hitler and Stalin signed the non-aggression pact. I don't think this is an apocryphal story. I've read this a few places. You like that word apocryphal? It means false. S-E-T word. That when Stalin was attacked by Hitler, meaning that Hitler broke the non-aggression pact, and they had decided they weren't going to fight each other during World War II, and Hitler's rolling into Russia, and apparently Stalin was like, no, they're not. His advisor were telling him that they were. He's like, no, they're not. We have a contract. So I guess his view of contract was we have a bond here. So reality doesn't exist because we have a contract that says this kind of thing isn't going to happen. Anyway, I did digress a bit there, but that's why you guys tune in. Sometimes I go off tangent. Okay, now, Brexit. This is off tangent here. Who knows what's going on in Brexit? But Theresa May, full stop. We're leaving the European Union on March 29th, full stop. Well, apparently not, and she's trying to get an extension. Looks like she's got one, but no one's buying it on her side. No one's buying on Labour's side. No one's buying at the EU, and the EU has given some type of extension, it looks like. She has been... This is just objective. I'm not into English politics, even though I lived there for 10 years. She's a disaster. She has not done what she's supposed to do, unless what she's supposed to do is make sure Brexit doesn't happen, but I'm not sure she's even making sure that doesn't happen the right way. So it looks like the EU has agreed to postpone Brexit from next Friday. I think even the EU is fed up with her, so we'll see what happens there. All right, now I think it's time for some people's favorite part of the program. Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent, Smaulgld.
This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Remember Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke? Remember that? We had Bernie on and he read his poems. Buff my balls. Wax my ass. Remember him? Yeah. Well, he's back. Uh-oh. This is not a good thing from Robert Francis. You know, I really like the guy, and I think that he's gonna do a good job when he's president. Well, I mean, when he runs for president against me and he loses. But I hear now that Beto O'Rourke ate dirt with regenerative powers after losing to Ted Cruz. So this guy went down to Mexico and he started eating dirt. Not sure, Beto. I think you should stick to writing poems about cows. Yeah, that was a very interesting one. He wrote in his diary how he ate dirt, and then he even brought some back to his family because I guess he wanted them to share in the... almost started... Uh-oh, we got a moron here. We cut that one off. Yeah, he wanted his family to also partake. And meanwhile, each of his campaign appearances, he's always jumping up on tables. He's jumping up on bars. He's jumping up on diner tables. I would stop that. I don't think it's a good idea to jump up on a diner's table, you dirty feet, where people are eating, and start waving your arms around. And I don't know. I originally, I'm going to take it back. I said like 2 months ago, before I've seen this guy in action, that he would be a formidable candidate. No, he's a joke. I don't think he's going to fly, because you can't be eating dirt and praising cows. And I don't know. He does not appear to be substantive. He doesn't appear to have his act together. And yeah, I take it back. I don't think he's going anywhere. They may try to push him, but he's not going to make it. All right. That's just my guess. Could be wrong. And again, I can change that if I see somehow he manages to hone his craft, what he had. Speaking of honing one's craft, this one is the second Moronica of the day. Guy's name is Trevor Noah. I've never really seen him. He's on Comedy Central. But as you know, a lot of the comedians are no longer comedians. They're basically paid to spend time bashing Trump. And apparently, they are looking to shut down this poor guy's program. And normally, when they shut your program down for no reason, it's because you suck. And I don't mean that. I don't know. I've never watched this show, so I can't say he sucks. I'm saying is the producers of the show realize you're not producing what they want. Now, sometimes they cut your show off because you become too controversial. You've been caught committing a crime of moral turpitude. You've done something wrong, or you've offended somebody. But this guy hasn't done anything, really. He's just... no one thinks he's funny, I guess. I don't know. So they've decided to cancel his show. Well, here's the moronic part of it. He goes on and does a video trying to gain support, like, poor me, and they cut me off, and he says nothing worse than a government shutdown other than a shutdown of my show. Please keep my show alive. Call this number. Tell AT&T to keep me on Comedy Central. And as I say here, welcome to the Ratio Show. It did not work. I would say there might have been one comment that was positive. The comments here are good. Your show is absolute trash. Bye-bye. Nobody wants to watch your waste-of-time show. LOL, I'm pretty sure this is not the response he was going for. Dropped Comedy Central. Thank you, Jesus. See what happens when you alienate more than half of your potential audience. I just called and told them if they don't drop it, I'll cancel my service. If they do drop it, I'll sign up all of my 26 properties. Unbelievably. I mean, it goes on and on. There's hundreds of these comments. Thank goodness I won't have to pay for this crap entertainment anymore. I called and supported the drop. That's awesome. I'll have to consider now signing up. This is great news. Oh, well. I guess he has no sense of really who his audience is, because he made this pitch. I think they even paid to have a promoted tweet, which is a real waste of money. All right, let's get into more serious business here. Now, we have reports that, official reports, this isn't just like, I don't report on if true, this is big, or any of that kind of stuff. This is actually out. William Barr has written a note and sent a note out to the head of both parties, Congress and Senate, and then the ranking member in the minority. And he says, I write to notify you, and pursuant to whatever act that is, that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has concluded his investigation into the 2016 election and Russian interference in related matters. And pursuant to that law, he's going to provide the members of Congress and Senate of a description and explanation of instances in which the Attorney General or Acting Attorney General concluded that a proposed action by special counsel was inappropriate or unwarranted under established department practices which should not be pursued. And then he says there were no such instances during the special counsel's investigation. What does that mean? It means that Robert Mueller finishes a report and he says, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to arrest Donald Trump. And Barr gets the report and he says, okay, well, you're not arresting Donald Trump. Go sit down. He would then have to tell Congress that, yeah, he wanted to arrest Donald Trump, but I told him he wasn't going to do that. So there is nothing like of that nature in the report. There's nothing that William Barr, the new Attorney General, said, I disagree with. They're not going to let you do that. So in a sense, no one's going to be able to claim that William Barr came along and he obstructed Robert Mueller from what he wanted to do. Robert Mueller was hot on the trail and he recommended these things in his report, and Barr said, no, you're not going to do that. So they've taken that away from him. They can't say that Barr struck down whatever aggressive act that Mueller wanted to take. Now, it's possible that Mueller wanted to take an aggressive act, and he has recommended an aggressive act in his report. We don't know that, but at least Barr is not stopping him from doing what he wishes to do. Special counsel has submitted to me today a confidential report explaining the prosecution and declination decisions, meaning the report talks about whether they're going to exonerate people or whether they're going to prosecute people. And he's going to review the report, and he anticipates he may be in a position to advise you of the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend, meaning he's going to send it to the congressional and Senate leaders. Now remember, he's not obligated to give them the report under the statute. He's obligated to give his summary of the report. And he says separately he intends to consult with Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General and Special Counsel Mueller, to determine what other information in the report can be released to Congress and the public consistent with law, including the Special Counsel's regulation and the Department's law-standing practice and policies. And that would probably include things like going through it and making sure if there's any grand jury information, any privacy information, any executive privilege type stuff, classified information, that gets redacted. Now, what I find interesting about all this is that 2 weeks ago we saw Amazon advertising that the Mueller's report would be available on March 26th, which is Tuesday. And the Washington Post was publishing that with annotations. And there was another publisher that was going to publish, and you can order it right now on Amazon. You could order it last week, 2 weeks ago, with Alan Dershowitz's annotations. So this leads me to believe that there's nothing too racy in it, because I don't think they'd be publishing it. I don't think they'd have this time scheduled down as they do if it was really explosive and blockbuster and full of salacious details. Because I would think that they would be much more careful if there were a lot of confidential, really nasty things in there to release a report. Otherwise, if they release a report and there actually are really bad things, but they don't release that in the report, then what's the point? So I think they probably have a fulsome report here. We're going to get your views, and we have a poll out here, as to what exactly is in the report. I'll tell you what I think is in the report. But let me just pull up the latest poll, and you guys can wander over there and vote yourself. In the poll, you go to Smaulgld YouTube channel, click on the community tab, and there you'll see the poll. And we now have 27 votes, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. Well, I'll tell you what they are after you go and vote, if you want to go over there right now and take a vote. The poll is, the Mueller report is set to be released. When it is released, it will contain A, a complete exoneration of Trump, B, no charges but criticism of Trump and or the Trump campaign. C, charges of crimes committed by Trump or the Trump campaign, for example, obstruction of justice. Or D, charges of wrongdoing by the Clinton campaign, the DNC, FBI, or DOJ. So I have those results, 27 votes. I will show you those in a second. But let me just tell you more about poll results, and we'll get that up there in a second. Let's get back to the letter. Then he says, finally, the special counsel regulations provide the Attorney General may determine that public release of this notification be the public interest. And so therefore he's saying, I'm notifying the public that I notified you, and here is this letter that does that. And he says he remains committed to as much transparency as possible, and I'll keep you informed of the status of my review. I'm guessing there's not going to be any holdups. This has been in the works for the longest period of time. Barr has been talking to, I'm sure, Rod Rosenstein. He's been talking to Mueller. They've got a timetable on this. They've probably already got the redactions set to go or agreed upon. And Congress will get it this weekend. Now, people are expecting that it needs to be released immediately. There's also been a lot of, I don't know if they're leaks or they're just speculation, but the general consensus is for those that are looking for Trump to go down with this report, they've essentially given up on that. Now, we could get a shocker and it contains Trump's going down. But for the most part now, the attention is turned to the Southern District of New York. We're talking about that in a minute. But it looks like this, and Trump is also encouraging the release of this report. Congress voted 430 to none. Both Democrats and Republicans, bipartisan agreement that they want to see the report. Barr has promised to try to accommodate that, but he doesn't have to under the statute, but he's not prohibited under the statute from releasing the entire report. All right, let's look at the poll first before we get into the analysis. So the question was asked, and we'll see if we get any more responses here. I'll give you another minute to vote. The Mueller report is set to be released. When it is released, which we do expect it to be released, will it contain complete exoneration of Trump? A, B, no charges but criticism of Trump or the Trump campaign. C, charges of crimes committed by Trump or the Trump campaign. And D, charges of wrongdoing by the Clinton campaign, DNC, FBI, or DOJ. And now we have 32 votes, so let's use that one. Oh, poll results. You hear that? We're getting set up here. We're going to have it all done in a second. All right. Well, the first 10 votes were unanimous. No charges against Trump, but they thought that, well, here's your, let me just show it to you if you didn't get over there. Here is the blank poll. You can read it. If you still haven't voted, maybe you want to go over there and vote. But the first round of votes that I collected, I think it was after 14 votes, 100%, no charges, but criticism of Trump and or the Trump campaign. Now, you have to remember, Mueller is buddies with Comey and a lot of the people at the DOJ and the FBI that have been booted, that have shown bias against Trump. He hired all Democrats, and he hired not just Democrats, he hired the Clinton Foundation's general counsel. He hired a lot of people that were against Trump. So I don't think he's just going to say, yeah, we didn't see anything here. I agree with the no charges but criticism of Trump under the Trump campaign. He's got to take a swipe. And he can't make it look like, well, there's just a big waste of time. There was nothing there. I'm sure he's going to complain. Yeah, I'm sure he'll complain that Trump's comments and tweets during the investigation, while they weren't obstruction of justice, they were definitely unwarranted and so on. We're going to get into what we think the response is. But charges of crimes committed by Trump or the Trump campaign, 0%. Charges of wrongdoing by the Clinton campaign, DNC, FBI, or DOJ, 0%. But now with 32 votes, let's take a look at the most recent votes. It's still the same direction. 81% say they think there'll be no charges, but there'll be some swipes at Trump and or the Trump campaign. 3%, or I guess looks like one vote probably, thinks that there will be charges of crimes committed by the Trump campaign, perhaps obstruction of justice. 16% think that Mueller will actually turn the tables and say, well, there were charges of wrongdoing, that the Clinton campaign, maybe they colluded with Russia, because that's what the focus of the investigation is, although all indications were didn't seem to be how did Russia interfere in the election. It was how did Russia and Trump interfere in the election. Now, if it really was a investigation into how Russia interfered with the election, you would not just have focused on Trump. You would have focused on Clinton, Jill Stein, Bernie Sanders. Well, what do you mean, Bernie Sanders? I got nothing to do with Russia, except I spent a lot of time. I spent my honeymoon in the Soviet Union. Bernie, no one said you did anything. Yeah, so you would think that they would have looked at all four candidates, but they didn't. So that's why I think a lot of people are thinking that 81%, that the charges, they may not nail Trump for charges on any of that, but they are going to take a swipe at him because they were looking into him, because that's what the FISA warrant was about. That's what all the people that were indicted, they were all related to Trump. So if Mueller was actually also looking at Jill Stein, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton, we would have seen indictments, because you know that if you just started investigating people, what they got, Manafort, Cohen, Flynn, Papadopoulos, all these guys, they got them on process crimes, they got them on finding other things that they had done wrong, and they were all people that were associated with the Trump campaign. If they were looking at the Clinton campaign, the Bernie campaign, hey, watch it, there's no reason to be looking at the Bernie campaign and the Jill Stein, campaign, they would have found bad people in those campaigns too. So clearly Mueller was not on the trail of figuring out what Russia might have done to interfere with the 2016 election. He was looking to find out what Trump or the Trump campaign had done. Although he did indict a Russian troll farm, but they never saw any justice. They're back in Russia. All right, so now what happens next? So that's what you guys think is going to happen. And let's see what else we have here. Yeah, so what's going to happen now is that Barr is going to look at it. He's going to figure out what to do, what to tell Congress, and then Congress is going to want to see the whole thing. Now, one of the things that Rosenstein had said, which is important, when he fired Comey as the Deputy Attorney General, what Comey had done was unprecedented as they dealt with Hillary Clinton. Forget how the investigation was run. That's a separate issue. What he did, and one of the reasons he was fired, and the recommendation that Rosenstein made that he was fired, was you're not supposed to give a long song and dance about somebody you're not going to prosecute. Because think about it if you're the person. So Joe, yeah, we investigated you and we found out that, yeah, you had the murder weapon, and yeah, you visited the murder scene a lot, and yeah, you took a lot of drugs, and you did have convictions for stealing stuff, and when you were 12, you did something wrong, but we're not going to prosecute you. Well, you just did. I mean, you just, by doing that, you damaged that person's reputation, and you're not going to pursue it. So what's the point of going through how he looked at all this stuff, but we decided, yeah, he didn't do the murder. That's basically what they did with Hillary Clinton. They said Comey went out there and he listed everything she did wrong, which made her look like she was guilty, and then said, yeah, but we're not going to do anything about it. So the declinations, the things that they aren't going to prosecute, I would imagine that they might even want to redact that, and that is where the Democrats might have a fit, because it may say, well, we looked into this guy and that guy and this other guy, and they're going to want to know who that guy was, because they're going to want to investigate. They're going to say, wait a minute, Robert Mueller said that, Joey Boombots did this, and we didn't prosecute him. We want to look into that. We're going to subpoena him. We're going to ask him what he knows, and so on. And But that's just something that might happen. I'm sure there's people that Mueller decided weren't worth their time. I'm surprised they went after Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi, but there's probably other nickel and dime players that they looked into and they didn't do anything. And their names, I would think that the Democrats should lighten up on that. It's not right to if the investigation says we cleared them, to list their names and what they might have done, so then you can go investigate them again. It's almost like double jeopardy. It's not quite, because you weren't actually prosecuted, but they're going to use those people, I'm sure. So I expect to see that as a big issue as to why wasn't this person followed up with, who's this person, who's individual A, B, and C, and why weren't they followed up on? We want their names. We're going to follow up on them. I'm sure that's going to happen, and then they're going to start saying Mueller must be in the Russian pocket for not. Who knows what's going to happen? So we don't even know what's in there, but these are some of the things that could come out. Now, one of the things Barr could do, and I do expect him to do this, is not just present the findings. He may not do this contemporaneously, not just the findings of the Mueller probe, but what he might also do is talk about how the Mueller probe was conducted. So for starters, he may have a problem with the fact, not that Sessions recused himself, but the fact that Rod Rosenstein stayed on the case, and that Rod Rosenstein was not the person that Rod Rosenstein to appoint and to supervise Robert Mueller, because Rod Rosenstein had a conflict of interest, because Rod Rosenstein signed the FISA warrant, and that's one of the reasons that not one of the reasons, that was one of the ways in which the investigation into the Trump campaign was justified, because they had to get a warrant, and Rosenstein signed it. So that makes him a party and a witness to everything that happened, and therefore he really shouldn't be supervising an investigation that he was part of. Also, Barr may want to look at the fact, if they do actually touch on obstruction of justice in the Mueller report, that Rod Rosenstein also should not have been involved in supervising Mueller, because he's also, in that instance, an actor in the case. Why? We were just talking about how he wrote a memo to Donald Trump explaining why James Comey, the FBI director, should be fired. And Trump's firing of Comey is considered by some to have been obstruction of justice. Now, Rosenstein said, well, he made me write the memo. Well, it doesn't matter. Even if he did, you've got other problems, because that means you didn't exercise independent judgment. Putting that aside, Rosenstein should not have been, and I would expect William Barr to point this out, should have recused himself. He was conflicted in both areas. The other thing I would expect Barr to point out also is the way that, or the people that Barr had on his team. Remember, at one point he had Strzok and Page on the team, who had, maybe not to his knowledge, but eventually he found out when what was the guy? Who was this guy? When they did the independent research on the Clinton investigation, not the Solicitor General, it's the guy who had produced the report on the Clinton investigation, where they unearthed all of the emails between Strzok and Page, the FBI guy who was leading the investigation at one point, and his girlfriend, Lisa Page, and found out that they were very biased against Trump as well, and he removed them from the case. But I would imagine that William Barr may chastise Mueller for himself not picking a well-balanced team in order to do the investigation. He may even criticize, if you were looking at Russian collusion, why did you only look at the Trump side? You could have looked at Bernie, hey, watch it over there, and also at Hillary Clinton and Jill Stein, and he didn't do that. He may also wish to point out that Robert Mueller had applied for the FBI director job under Trump, and Trump ditched him, and then he became the special counsel investigating Trump. And then also he may wish to point out that Mueller maybe didn't disclose the fact that he and Trump had a business dealing. I think it was Mueller wanted to get into one of Trump's clubs and Trump didn't let him or something. I don't know. So there may have been some bias there. Not sure if he'll get into that. I think he should if he really wants to clean this thing up. I think he wants to take all of the Mueller investigation findings seriously, but he also wants to go through the process. And I think the idea of the report that Rosenstein made about Comey was spot on, that Comey pretty much violated all types of FBI protocol. Forget how they ran the investigation. Just by going out and giving a whole rigmarole about what she had done, but why he's decided we're not going to prosecute her, making recommendations, taking that out of the Attorney General's hands, then the Attorney General, Lynch and Clinton meeting on the tarmac, and then opening up the investigation again the last week in the campaign when Comey gave another saying that we're going to take another look at this based on more emails that we found that they had sat on for 3 weeks from David Weiner and his wife Huma Abedin, who was Hillary Clinton's confidant. All that kind of stuff was the Inspector General. That's the guy. His name was Horowitz. Just remembered. Horowitz made a report on how the Clinton investigation was run, and there was a criminal referral on McCabe, who was number 2 at the FBI. Comey was implicated as being way out of line. They said, however, that the investigation into the Hillary Clinton email was done without any bias, but they criticized a lot of the procedures. So I would imagine if part of the DOJ, which the FBI reports to, would be to clean up a lot of these process issues and how special counsels are appointed, who the special counsel appoints to work on their team, how they check for bias. I think there's a lot of issues that Barr may choose to raise, not just what's in the special counsel's report, but what's not in there and how it was derived. So I expect to see that. What else? I think that's it here on all of the things that we know so far. The big thing that's going to happen is if there is nothing, and there is many people are suggesting. Now, it's possible. There could be some shockers. I'm not quite sure they will be. But if there are, and let's say there are some shockers, remember, whatever shockers are in there, the Trump administration, their lawyers, Sekulow and Giuliani, they have mounds of documents. And one thing that the Mueller report won't be able to do is probably to cherry pick information and draw conclusions from it, because I would imagine that with the access that the president has to all the documents, that they'll be able to do a refutation of any type of cherry picked or different type of analysis from information that they have. So I'm expecting, like most people are, that there's not much in there, and that Mueller handed off the juicy stuff on, the one thing that's still out there is the campaign finance violation at the Southern District of New York. And then you have the district attorney in the Southern District of New York has just basically said, I'm investigating Trump, full stop, on anything. And they're going to try to find something in his business dealings, his tax returns. But I think this Russian collusion thing hasn't gone anywhere, and they're going to probably look into. Well, there certainly was Russian interference, but it doesn't look like there was any coordinated effort between any Russians in any campaign other than Bernie. Hey, watch it! I had nothing to do with Russia. No, just kidding, Bernie. But that the main thing is going to be the hopes on nailing Trump are going to be thrown over to the Southern District of New York. Now, I think this campaign finance violation is nonsense. They keep calling him a unindicted co-conspirator. Just briefly, when Cohen pled guilty to a bunch of things that he had done that had nothing to do with Trump, like not paying his taxes on a fleet of medallions, taxi medallions he had, lying on his applications for loans and so on. He also pled guilty to something that wasn't tried or pled. he pled guilty to a campaign finance violation, which was the making of a payment to Stormy Daniels. And the reason that's not a campaign violation is, in order to break campaign violation law, you have to know that what you're doing is a breach of the campaign finance laws. And Cohen said that Trump didn't know about it. But even if Trump knew about the payments, it's still not a campaign finance violation, because making a payment to settle a case like that, if you have another reason other than to help your campaign, then it's not a campaign donation. So I think they're holding too much hope on that. That thing, I don't think that's a case at all. Well, again, this is something we're going to have to see. Now, the other issue is, what, if any, impact is any of this going to have on our financial markets? I would imagine that a slap on the wrist or some bad mouthing of Trump, but nothing in the way of future prosecutions, or I think that's going to be positive for the market. I think the only thing that's negative for the market, if there's something really damning in there, that would undermine the faith in the system. And that could either be, and I don't see either of these happening, that Mueller puts out an arrest warrant for Trump, or Bill Barr just blows up and says the whole thing was a sham. And I don't think either of those two things are going to happen. I think they'll know exactly how to bring it down the middle so that people will be upset but not that upset on whatever side you are. People will be happy but not that happy. So I think they'll have a way of massaging it such that there'll be people that are annoyed, they'll want to go forward, but it won't have this bombshell impact. There may be little stuff in there, but I think people are tired of bombshells, that they're shell shocked from it. I don't think there's going to be anything there, but we'll see. I'm just giving my opinion. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments. Maple Hedgehog says he's definitely curious about this. I hope we sated your curiosity tonight. Coins AZ says, Smaulgld, maybe a good tagline for your channel might be the place where this guy offers up analysis on that subject. Now, that's a good one. All right, how much do I owe you for that? Ann Hollum in the news as it is. DB Stupid, mugs colluding with glasses. What will be next? Bob the Monk, well, even with no evidence, racist, bigot, and we know the headlines of CNN. Well, yeah, I mean, I watched CBS tonight, and it was all about, yeah, if there's nothing in there, how do we get them? That was the whole, everyone, the guest they had on was, this isn't the end of it. Congress is going to go broader against Trump, the Southern District of New York. It's almost as if they think that everyone wants the guy to go down, and this is not the end. No, this is just, we've just begun to fight. All right. Joe Lazara, I watched a Pumper channel after Lewis's Basel III video, and I was shown Exeter's pyramid with gold and silver at the apex and told that is all I need to know. And then Ann says, did you buy into it? Let's see if he answers the question. Taylor says, no criminal acts per Mueller. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one other piece. There was one thing the CNN reporter had out there, and we were all speculating, but just before I got on, I did see this. After we put the poll up, I did see this. Let me find it. Here it is. Who knows if she's right or not. Special counsel Mueller is not recommending any further indictments, I'm told. Okay, so we'll see if that's the case. But I think this stuff has been leaking for months. I think they know exactly what's going on. They've moved on to the Southern District of New York. They moved on to... The reason that Congress started these investigations 2 or 3 weeks ago is I think they knew there was nothing that Mueller was going to do that was going to satisfy them. I mean, you would think they would wait. No, they knew. So now they've got all these subpoenas out there. All right. What else, Taylor? Meanwhile, I read a mainstream medical article claiming Trump diverted campaign dollars to his Trump Tower LLC and Trump Business for Rent and other things. Yeah, they're going to go through all. I mean, they're going to go through his business dealings. They probably will get him eventually, but it'll be just through sheer trying to find every last thing that he might have done wrong. All right. Funny how the S&P seems to stop at 2,800 again. Plunge protection ain't much, yeah. Joe answers, and no, there was no critical analysis like I get from this channel. No, of course not. No, when I saw one of the channels was talking about how central banks are buying gold because of Basel. No, they're not. Because now they can mark to market their gold reserves. They always mark to market their gold reserves. It's got nothing to do with it. It's about commercial banks being allowed to do that. And Mike Maloney saying, oh, what they're saying here is that we should be on a gold standard. No, they're not. I'm not even going to get into it again. These are the experts. Gold backed yuan. Gold's game changer. Look up Gold's Game Changer by Mike Maloney. And that's the video in which he was going on and on about how China's going to have a gold backed yuan, and all you have to do is bring your gold in to the your yuan that you accepted for oil to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and it'll hand over the gold, and then the oil producers are going to take their yuan and they're going to go buy gold, and it's going to create demand for gold, and it's going to be a game changer. And no truth to that story whatsoever. And he called me out from a comment I had written a couple of weeks earlier before that article, saying, this guy is saying it's a bunch of nonsense. He says there's no source to this story. I'll give you sources. Yeah. Stories with no sources. And the fact is, 2.5 years later, there is no gold-backed yuan game changer. Yep. Experts. What else? Barbara Carbone is here. Hi, Smaulgld. Coins AZ. Yeah. Prashanti girl loves cows.
The cows give milk. Robert Francis O'Rourke wrote a good poem. Love the cow. Wax my ass. Buff my balls.
All right. Let's see. I'm looking. You guys are just chatting to yourself. If you're not talking to me, I'm not listening. Caduceus. Who's Caduceus? All right. Prashanti girl. Smaulgld, do you watch the Duran? No. Never heard of it. This morning's vid said there's a recording and other evidence showing Obama's Clinton government colluded with Ukraine. Oh, yeah. I didn't read it in Duran, but I do know that story. That, yeah, including with Ukraine to meddle. Serious news, not conspiracy theory. Yeah, they actually have evidence on that. That's what's interesting. There are people who believe that this whole Russian collusion thing was just to keep them off the trail of all the bad things that Hillary had done, and not just in the campaign, but with the Clinton Foundation and the illegal server and so on. Jeremy asked a question. If the stock market takes a dump, does Trump run in 2020 on an end of Fed campaign? I don't think so. I don't. Trump doesn't know enough to be against the Fed. He doesn't know enough to be for a gold standard, against the gold standard. And the guy he's appointing, I think the end the Fed thing has become, too many people want to end the Fed and they don't really know what they would replace it with, and they say we wouldn't replace it with anything. Well, that's never going to happen. The problem with the Fed is not that it's a central bank. It's that it is the only central bank that is not run by the Treasury. However, having a central bank run by a Treasury is not a good thing either.
That's a good thing, Louis. That's a really good thing. Even if you think it's not a good thing, it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing.
No, Bernie, it's not. The same people that complain about the Fed have complained historically, when they hear about it, about Lincoln's greenbacks and the Continentals in the Revolutionary period. When a government itself, the Treasury, prints up money, they have no restrictions anymore. They have even fewer restrictions than the Fed does. The Fed can have its charter revoked. You can end the Fed. Yes, that's possible. The Fed technically has more independence and could be more prudent. And that's why when Trump was telling them don't raise rates, they said, no, we're going to raise rates anyway. But if Trump's Treasury Department was in charge of the money supply, he would just say, print her up. So I know people are against the Fed, and they're against it for good reasons, but they don't fully understand, unless you're an anarcho-capitalist, you say we don't need any of this stuff, but that's not going to happen. You're going to have some centralized entity that's in control of the money supply, and we've seen if it's your own treasury, the party in power is always going to print money. So you're not going to have any difference. And that's what Lincoln did. Lincoln just printed up the money to pay for the war. Creates inflation. And people have been complaining about the Fed since 1913. But who's to say that the central bank run by the treasury wouldn't have done the same? Now, there is the argument we don't need any central bank. That would only work if other countries didn't have them, and the United States wasn't the reserve currency. Now, you can say, well, just let's ditch all. That's all very radical. You can't just say the way the world runs right now is the U.S. has a central bank, it's the Federal Reserve, and it issues the world's reserve currency. Well, we'll just get rid of it because Ron Paul says to get rid of it. It sounds good. And the Fed, and the dollar hegemony. Yeah, but they're... I don't think people have thought it through. It makes you feel good to say end the Fed, but what are you going to replace it with? And don't say you don't have to replace it with anything. You're not dealing with people who are willing to experiment that much with the entire world financial system and say, yeah, the United States they're just not going to have a central bank anymore because Andrew Jackson got rid of it in 1820, so we can get rid of it right now. Again, it's pumper style talk. You just become against something, and they get people foaming at the mouth. Like, end the Fed, end the Fed, end the Fed. Okay. Lewis, will the report be known publicly, and if there is no Russian collusion, will CNN say sorry? No way. They're going to start immediately shifting to the Congress, the Senate. They're going to be saying that the Congress has to investigate more stuff. Mueller was hamstrung. He had Trump was always tweeting at him. They're going to say Southern District of New York will find it out. CNN will never apologize for that. Because they're going to say that no matter what it says, even if, which no one said would happen, even if the Mueller report says Trump is a genius, he's a stable genius, and he's done nothing wrong, CNN will say, well, wait till Congress finishes its investigation. We'll see how smart he is. Yes. Anne asked, did he really go to Russia for his honeymoon? Yes.
I was in Russia for my honeymoon. I thought it was one of the best places to go at the time. It wasn't Russia. It was the Union. It was the Soviet Union. And it was really good because we all sat around and we sang songs. And I was with my comrades.
Yeah, he was there.
That's right. It's a good thing.
All right, the bread lines are good. That's right.
The rich people get all the food. They're eating all the food. And the poor are starving to death. So it's a good thing when you have a food line, because then at least the poor have a shot at the food. Otherwise, the rich people are eating all the food.
Bread lines are good. All right, everyone. Oh, no, it's not all right, everyone. Chrono Trigger fan. Oh, no, not this guy again. Remember Bill Holter's Golden Super Bowl? So, yes, the PBOC would drag their kilobars out into arena and televise the whole event. Yes, they'd say, here's our gold. Where's yours? And then it was going to be game over, a game changer. People, that's another expert. Yes, they're going to roll it out into a stadium, as countries do. Yeah, China's going to roll their gold out into a stadium. Of course they are. Game over. And then the COMEX is going to collapse. It's going to default. That was another one. All right, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, silver with Smaulgld. We're going to go through 16th century silver, okay? So, we'll see you tomorrow. If you want to donate to Smaulgld, please do so. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Patreon, PayPal, or by check. Or, if you're interested in helping the site out, buy a mug. Or buy your gold or silver through the affiliate links below this BitChute and YouTube. And always go over to Smaulgld.com. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you all Smaulgld mug stackers and game changers and second red pill dropping. We'll see you tomorrow.